Well, hello there. Good afternoon and welcome to The Pulse. We are coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. Don't forget that this afternoon we are on your digital terrestrial TV. We are free to air. You can watch us live on DSTV channel 421 and Go TV channel 144. This is Joy News, independent, fearless and credible journalism. Coming up on The Pulse today, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is expected to address the nation in a few minutes from now as he outlines government measures to tackle Ghana's economic challenges. This afternoon, we assess the claims of the leader of Ghana's economic management team. Plus, we speak exclusively to former Deputy Finance Minister Fifi Kwetey. Meanwhile, the Bank of Ghana is also tightening its fiscal measures as it vows to crack the whip on the black market transactions and persons who trade goods and services in foreign currencies. There's more on that for you shortly. And there's no way the country will go back to its dark days of doomsday. That's according to the Ministry of Energy, as it denies claims of the minority that Ghana could be plunged into another energy crisis. My name is Sogah. Don't forget that The Pulse is always brought to us by Global Communities Digni Lu, affordable, safe sanitation. This afternoon, we are streaming live on YouTube and all of our social media handles is at JoyNews on TV. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is at Blessed Sogah. Thanks for choosing us. Well, so this afternoon, the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, is set to address the nation in a few minutes from now as he outlines measures being rolled out to deal with Ghana's economic challenges. We understand that Ghana's leader of the economic management team, who is famed for his sharp criticism of the erstwhile John Mahama administration, is now under pressure to account for how his own government has actually managed the Ghanaian economy. Just a couple of days ago, President Akufo-Addo, in an interview with the BBC, denied claims that the NPP has mismanaged the Ghanaian economy. Listen.
The digital economy, the mobile economy.
Yes, but you're taxing people on money that has already been taxed.
Is the biggest economy in the is emerging as the biggest economy in the country, and for a long period has not had any taxation at all. So it is important now that they also come into the net. Our country has one of the lowest tax to GDP ratios of any country in West Africa and of an equivalent economy. The ECOWAS area, the general average today, tax to GDP average is about 18%. Ghana, we're at 13%. So it's as if you're talking about a country which is already overtaxed, if anything at all, is undertaxed.
Okay, let me take you up on that point. You know, on your low tax ratio to GDP. I'm just going to quote. Read this quote to you. It's from John Kwetey, who I'm sure you might know is the Director of Research at the Accra-based Institute for Economic Affairs. He says there are several loopholes in our tax system that, if they are plugged, will be able to raise our tax to GDP ratio to something like 20% from the 12% that you're talking about.
Well, first of
all,
are you
speaking to experts like him?
First of all, there's a recognition that
no, but he's actually saying, I didn't read all of it.
That I'm giving to you
that there's no need for the E-levy.
Well, that's his point of view.
He's an expert.
But he's an expert. There are experts in government as well, and we think it's necessary, and that's the reason why we...
You think it's necessary to tax people who are already impoverished?
And they're not already impoverished. We're talking about people. We're talking about taxing an industry and transactions where a lot of value is being created, and we want to also bring that value into government coffers. I think that is something that is there's nothing so, and the E-levy is not Ghana, it's the only country that has something like a mobile digital tax. Many countries, they will not like it. People never,
because they're already taxing people who do business online, and then you are taxing as well.
Very little. People never like taxes. I don't know any group of people, especially businesses, when taxes are brought to them that like it.
Well, so that's the president there justifying the economic conditions, but a number of Ghanaians have actually raised concerns about the economic hardship, including ex-President John Dramani Mahama, who is also taking a swipe at Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who he claims has gone into hiding.
The Akufo-Addo-led government that came to power on the back of mouth-watering promises to make life easier for Ghanaians and ensure rapid development of our country has so badly mismanaged the economy that we have been plunged into the most debilitating economic crisis in about 4 decades. Indeed, we all recollect some of those mouth-watering promises, including one by the current president to transform this country, Ghana, within 18 months. This crisis into which he has led us has spawned hardship and suffering for our people on a scale never witnessed in the 30-year history of our fourth republic. Daily price increases, fuel price adjustments, and nose-diving currency, which has rather arrested the person who said he would arrest the other restaurant. The dollar has rather arrested him, and so we're looking for him, we can't find him. I asked the IDP if he had a peak so that we could find where our vice president was, and he said he doesn't have it, and he doesn't know his whereabouts. General incompetence, corruption, and waste of scarce resources have combined to make life simply unbearable for the generality of Ghanaians. General incompetence, corruption, and waste of scarce resources have combined to make life simply unbearable for the generality of Ghanaians. No group is perhaps harder hit than the young people of this country. The issues that affect the youth of Ghana who dominate our population are many, and in these times of severe economic downturn, they have inevitably been worse off than perhaps any other demographic group in Ghana.
Well, so that's the big question. Where is the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia? Fortunately, there's an answer to that. Joining us live now is Baka Wilson, who's live at the event grounds where the Vice President is expected to address the nation and talk about the economic challenges confronting us today. And what's the current condition? We'll be exploring that shortly. But first, Baka is joining us live from the venue where the Vice President is expected to address us. Baka, where are you and what's happening? We'll definitely reconnect with Baka. But Baka, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about where exactly you are and when we're expecting the Vice President to speak.
Right, so Blessed, currently at the Gomwafete where, here's Millennium City, the Pentecostal Church Conference, and this is where the governing NPP is having the National TESCON Conference, and the TESCON is the youth wing of the NPP in our various campuses, being private universities or the traditional universities across the country. And with this conference, the party has decided that they will give the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to, according to Nana B, that is the youth organizer of the party who spoke a while ago, that the Vice President is going to make a big announcement. As to what that announcement is, we don't know, but we are yet to appreciate that big announcement. And I've been speaking to some of the NPP members, and they have rejected claims that essentially what the Vice President seeks to do is about what the former President John Mahama said, that rather they had already arranged and programmed that the Vice President was going to speak at this particular event. And basically because of the economic meltdown across the globe, the Vice President will be talking about its impact on the Ghanaian economy, and of course the practical steps, the comprehensive steps the government has adopted to ease the burden on the ordinary Ghanaian. And so that is what he will be talking about. I must say that is a packed room. I mean, the conference is full all across the auditorium. You see members of the NPP, and the national organizer just spoke, and his comments were that the TESCONs or the youth, they are the ones who will be campaigning for the 2024 elections, and so the destiny of the party is in their hands. They shouldn't allow the NDC to dictate for them. They should know that the government has done a lot of good things in the country, and so they should go out there to propagate same. There are quite a number of dignitaries here. We have the First Lady, Madam Rebecca Akufo-Addo, the Vice President himself, and of course his spouse, Madam Samira Baomian. We also have Gabriel Sarachudakon. We have all the national executives of the governing NPP here, right from Freddie Blake to the National Treasurer, so Sami Oku, John Bodu, they are all present, including some individuals who have expressed desire to lead the party in the upcoming internal election. So many individuals are quite poised, especially those who are here, are poised to listen to or hear what the Vice President will be saying this very afternoon. I'm told that in the next 10 minutes, he will be addressing the members or the delegates who have gathered here this afternoon to listen to him. So we await what the Nanabi says is the big announcement from the Vice President. Currently, the General Secretary of the party is addressing the delegates.
I'm grateful that you are giving us that indication, because clearly it appears that there's something in the pipeline that the Vice President will be announcing to us. So we'll bring that to you as and when we have that. But we know that some other speakers have been commenting on the state of the Ghanaian economy. What are some of these, what are the names, those who have spoken before the Vice President, and what justification are they giving about why we're experiencing the economic hardship? Well, Paka, if you can hear me, I'm just asking about, it appears we've lost Paka there, but we'll definitely be getting the very latest for you, as we understand that the Vice President has a big announcement to make. We're not sure of what that announcement will be, but that big question is also on the table today. What's the current economic condition of Ghana as we speak? In fact, there's a need for us to track the timeline and try and help you understand what's happening. Here's a timeline of our GDP growth rate since 1965, and it's going all the way into the current state in which we find ourselves. If you look at the trajectory as we speak, actually, you can clearly tell that we were doing quite well in 2011, right here, during the Mills era, in 2011, where we understand that our growth rate was somewhere around 14.047%. That was the level of growth and the highest at the time, one of the fastest growing economies in the world during the Evans Mills regime. But then our growth trajectory began to drop slightly into the next phase of the NDC administration, and then started picking up after the IMF austerity measures in 2017. So there you have it in 2017, right after the highest growth in 2011. Then we experienced that highest growth in 2017. But it was a pickup because the highest was actually right here in 2011, where we recorded the fastest growing economy, in fact, in the world at the time, one of the fastest growing in the world at the time. But in 2017, the numbers began to pick up. And then the Akufo-Addo administration attributed that growth to the number of fiscal measures that were putting in place, and some of the measures that the NPP administration was rolling out at the time. In fact, part of the reasons why the NPP won the election, they had promised then that they were going to change the economic fortunes of the country. So at the time in 2017, when everything was smooth, there was no need to complain. But here we are today, and our situation is not good at all. The lowest growth rate since 1975. So we're doing so badly, 0.414%. That's our level of growth. And the president, as you heard earlier, attributed the situation to the COVID-19 pandemic. But many experts say that should not be the only indication. The World Bank is also indicating that the signs were there before the COVID. So we'll be exploring all of that. But let's go back to Paka. Paka would help us understand some of the justifications that we've been hearing. In fact, it's a whole day for you trying to analyze all of this and some more economic matters for you. So Paka, first help us understand what more justifications we've been hearing from some other officials. I understand that Gabi Asare-Otridako's, the former director of the Dankwa Institute, has also been justifying a number of issues. Tell us about that and what more the NPP has to say about the economy.
So essentially, the governing NPP has remained resolute that the economic situation that we are currently faced with, the crisis, the meltdown, is really not about mismanagement, but of course the Ukraine-Russia war and also the inception of the COVID-19 pandemic. They have made the point, in fact, those who spoke, and Gabi a while ago spoke, he's made the point that before COVID-19, the government was actually on a positive trajectory in terms of our economic growth. And so the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, together with the President, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, were steering the affairs of the economy perfectly until we had the COVID. And so largely, anybody who may want to suggest that the current situation is as a result of mismanagement is palpable falsehood. It is never true. It is quite misleading. And so that you should go out there and defend the party and let them know that the NPP administration has done a lot of work in terms of the economy, but for COVID and but for the Russian-Ukraine war. So these has been the two key issues that has been attributed to the current crisis we are facing. And they have made the point that in spite of the challenges, the President and the Vice President are still confident that they will turn things around. And that is why some few weeks ago or days ago, we had the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, announcing to us a raft of measures being taken by the government to ensure that they ease the economic burden on the ordinary Kenyan. And so they are quite confident that going forward in the next 2.5 years ahead of us, the party is quite positive and poised that they will turn things around. And for breaking the 8, they essentially will break the 8. In fact, there's been an agenda here, and most of the speakers who spoke earlier before the General Secretary, who is now addressing them, has made the point that it is possible to break the 8, and it will only be possible when the youth, of course, the Tesconites, go out there to propagate the good work of the party and, of course, the government as well. So they are confident that going forward, the next 2.5 years, they will do everything possible to win the 2024 election. One of the things that Gabi said was that if the former President Mahama is allowed to assume power in 2024, what it means is that all the economic gains achieved by the NPP administration will be reversed. And so they have to make sure that the party wins the 2024 election, and they will win if they go out there to advocate for the party and also to let Ghanaians know what the party has been doing since they won power in 2016.
And let's touch on the big announcement that we're hearing of. Do we know what it's all about? Are you able to pick some information on the grounds as to what this big announcement could be?
Well, I tried to speak to Nana B to have a better appreciation what this big announcement is. Well, he tells me everything is in the hands of Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He doesn't want to take the wind out of his sail, and so we should wait patiently for him to address Ghanaians, and of course those who are here, and he will make that big announcement. As to what it is, we do not know. So we are waiting patiently for the turn of the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, to address the delegates, and when he's done, we'll be able to establish what the big announcement is. So. The people who are here, they themselves, they don't know what the big announcement is. So we are all waiting for the Vice President to come on, because the NPP has kept it under wraps. The National Youth Organizer, Nana B, who is actually the main architect, the main engineer of this particular event, doesn't want to disclose the information to us. So we wait patiently for the Vice President to take his stand, and we will hear what the big announcement is.
And Parker, one of the topical issues, in fact, you've been monitoring Parliament as well. One of the topical issues has got to do with the controversy surrounding the E-levy. Are we getting any comments on that as well?
Well, so far the speakers have not touched on that, but it is a petition of many, because a few conversations I had with some of those who are here were also inquiring for a better appreciation of how the E-levy will be implemented. So it is the petition that if the Vice President is speaking, obviously he should touch on the E-levy and provide clarity on how the policy or the act will be implemented come next month. So far, nobody, not any of the speakers haven't touched on that. They have touched on Agenda 111, they've touched on NAPCO, they've touched on the 100 million jobs, the 1 million jobs the President of the government is expected to create. But for E-levy, we haven't heard anything about it. So it is the expectation of many that the Vice President speaks, he would provide some clarity on how the policy will be implemented, the deductions and everything, all the ambiguity around it. Perhaps it might bring some closure to it and some clarity to the whole initiative.
Parker Wilson joining us live there from where we're expecting the Millennium City, where we're expecting the Vice President to address us. In fact, as Parker was indicating, in a few minutes from now, the Vice President will break his silence, will tell us what government is doing to contain the imminent collapse of the Ghanaian economy. But fortunately, there's one man who was at the center of it all when the NDC administration was experiencing quite a good record in terms of the management of the economy. Fifi Kwetey is a former Deputy Finance Minister under the Mills administration, is joining us now via Zoom. In fact, he'll be helping us with this discussion. We're understanding that the Vice President will take his turn shortly. But first of all, Fifi Kwetey, let me welcome you to the polls.
And I'm happy to be with you, and a good afternoon to all your many viewers.
Indeed, it's such a pleasure watching you again, particularly when you've gone a little under the radar. Is it the case that you are pleased with what's happening across the country and the governance that we've seen from the new Patriotic Party administration?
I think it's more about watching quietly in order to see exactly what the so-called magicians who proclaimed that they were messiahs going to transform this country into a paradise are able to achieve. We saw 4 years, and those 4 years absolutely were not good enough. They boosted for 4 more, and the 4 more actually is getting even worse. So basically, I think I'm rather stunned into silence, shocked about the level of incompetence and the shocking display of hypocrisy that this country has been engulfed into.
And I guess the reason why you're making all of this argument is because of what's happening now. And if we could just illustrate that to you, you have it right here, 0.414%. That's the rate of our growth right now, the slowest and the lowest since 1975. But you're making this argument, and the president responds by saying it's all because of the COVID-19 pandemic. That's just justifiable, isn't it?
The sad part is not the fact that the economy goes through difficulties. Every economy now and again goes through some difficulty. The sad part is that when you have in the leadership of a country, let's just say a group that simply is not candid enough to accept what the truth is. You saw, for example, that when we had difficulties between the period, let's say 2013, 2014, President Mahama was very honest about the difficulties. He didn't seek to shift the blame. When, for example, we had to confront the energy crisis, we did not shift the blame, even though that crisis was not our making. But we did not shift it. We met it and tried hard and fix it. But we are dealing with a group that is pretending as if Ghana is an island. I mean, Ghana is surrounded by so many countries, and all those countries never experienced the levels of what you call the collapse that Ghana saw as a result of, in the year 2020. I mean, growth in Cote d'Ivoire, growth in Togo, growth in Benin, Nigeria, Burkina Faso, never was at the level that our growth was. Now, so to simply use wasn't a COVID as an excuse, simply showing that you are not showing even the level of honesty, the level of conduct that is needed. And that is the number one trait that is needed for a leader.
But Fifi, many would challenge you on that claim, particularly when the argument is that and when I say you, the NDC did not take off on a clean slate. You had a pretty bad record when you were exiting office, and the new Patriotic Party at least made some significant gains, and now we are recording a slump in the economy. So it's not as though it was a clean slate when the president took off.
But that itself is another big lie, because if you will recall, in 2016, the cedi depreciated by less than 9%. Okay, we are talking about a group that today, with all the massive oil revenues that they are getting, still have the cedi depreciating at 15%. In 2016, it is true that GDP was not very high, but every single person who was following the Ghanaian economy knew that work had already been done that was going to ensure that GDP was going to grow at a minimum of 8% in 2017, which was known not just in Ghana, but actually was known all over the world. The World Bank, IMF, the investors, the credit rating agencies, all of them knew that Ghana's economy, work had been done to ensure that growth was going to be a minimum of 8% in 2017. Massive talk of investment, it was handed over to the government that was in place. So you should not just limit it to what GDP was in 2016. You should be looking at the amount of work that was done to ensure that the growth in 2017 was going to rebound and reach a very high level. But of course, there again, I talk about the lack of candor and the lack of honesty, because ordinarily, any group that came into office in 2017 should have actually been, should I call it, humble enough to accept that the real work that was bringing about that growth in 2017 had already been done by President Mahama and the team that worked between 2013 to 2016. So to come and say that, oh, we came and saw a growth of 8%, the truth of the matter, you had nothing to do with that growth. I'm talking about MPP. That job had already been done. The stock of investment that led to that growth had already been done. So if you say that there were difficulties, of course, every economy goes through difficulty. But what do you do in the midst of that difficulty to ensure that there's a massive rebound, to ensure that whoever is taking over from you is having an economy that is strong enough to accelerate? That is where the difference lies. And that's exactly what we did. Yeah. Not only did we resolve the energy crisis, which actually had been very difficult for any previous government to do, we also achieved all this in 2016 without one peso coming from the Bank of Ghana. Zero Bank of Ghana financing. Our friends in 2020 had access to not less than 20 billion cedis. We had zero, not one peso in the whole of 2016. But still in that 2016, we were still able to prepare the ground for the rapid growth that we saw in 2017.
And I'm not exactly quoting the president, but he says everyone is suffering, and this is not a situation that is peculiar to Ghana. All across the country, even in the United Kingdom at the time when he was granting the interview, was experiencing some level of economic difficulty. So it appears that the COVID-19 is a force majeure, isn't it?
Now, typically, the president is doing exactly what he does, running away from responsibility, taking cover under a pandemic when the problem actually was caused by.
But you do agree that the pandemic was part of the problem. You have to admit that.
No, but you must appreciate that every economy would have to handle external difficulties as well as internal difficulties. There were massive external difficulties leading to 2016. For example, if I mention to you about what happened in 2015 as a result of what you call a collapse in prices of cocoa and stuff, we have to make do with that. But you don't use that as an excuse. It's only an irresponsible people who try to run away from their own problem and try and blame another problem for it. The problem we had in 2020 has a lot to do with the recklessness of the government. Because remember, as I mentioned earlier, the deficit of almost 16% that we had in 2020 had nothing to do with the pandemic. Côte d'Ivoire did not have that kind of deficit. Nigeria did not have it. Rwanda did not have it. Togo did not have it. So if anybody tells you that the deficit that was brought about in 2020 was because of the pandemic, the person clearly is not telling you the truth. The person is running away from responsibility.
But the signs in 2017, Fifi, by the signs in 2017, 2018, and 2019, even the president talks about 2020. Before the COVID-19, the signs, the indications we're getting was that GDP growth rate was quite significant.
As I told you, the highest growth rate that they have experienced was in 2017, and that came about because of the massive work that the NDC had done and handed over to them. As I mentioned to you, that growth rate was already predicted even before the end of 2016.
What's the scientific basis of that?
What do you say?
Is there any report? What's the scientific basis for us to believe what you're telling us?
I'm sure even Joy FM, I'm sure you even covered it. The IMF, the World Bank, all of them had predicted Ghana's growth was going to be not less than 8% in 2017. And these predictions were done even before the end of 2016. So for them to even come and not acknowledge that, tells you again that these are people who they simply don't want to tell the truth. President Mahama announced that by 2017, growth was not going to be less than 8%. We knew about that already. 2 massive oil fields had already been handed over to this country before they came into office, and that was largely the result of the growth that they saw in 2017. Subsequent to 2017, growth started coming down. Now, if they say there were no problem ahead of the pandemic, it's not true. 2018, deficit had already gone up to 7.5%, which was higher than the 2016 deficit. In 2016, deficit was about 6%. By 2018, they are taking the deficit to 7.5%. 2019, the deficit was still about 7%. So you can see that they already were losing it. Depreciation of the currency, as I told you, by 2018, the depreciation of the currency had gone ahead of what they saw in 2016. By 2019, the same. So you were talking about a group that already were losing it completely. So for them to use the pandemic as an excuse is again another show of irresponsibility.
We know that this is of concern to the National Democratic Congress. In fact, the former President John Dramani Mahama has been talking about the situation. He goes ahead to take a swipe at the Vice President, indicating that he's not been able to manage the economy well and that he's been hiding ever since. Are you happy that the Vice President is finally showing face, quote unquote, right now?
To be happy, I really don't know about whether I should be happy or I should be sad. All I just know is I'm curious exactly to know what exactly is coming to say. This was the individual who was proclaimed to be the Messiah, the individual who said that Ghana was borrowing too much and they had the answers. There was no need to borrow. Today, our debt to GDP has gone over 80%. This was the individual who said he was going to bring about what you call economic measures that would ensure that we move from taxation to production. Today, we absolutely are not just taxing our people, but we've gone even to the extent of taxing even Momo. Through an E-levy.
Right.
This is an individual who made all kinds of pronouncements on the transformation of the economy. The economy today clearly shows that there's no transformation.
But since you're talking, and since you're talking about it, why don't we go into it? It's part of the solutions that government is proposing as a means of checking and raising revenue, first of all, and checking our dependency on aid, foreign assistance, and all of that. Now the president says, if you look at our figures and across the sub-region, West Africa, Ghana has a lesser tax regime, and that there's a need for us to shore it up. At least we're doing below the average across West Africa. So what's your response to that, particularly when we know quite well that the figures are clear, only a small amount of persons are paying taxes in this country, and that there's a need for us to raise more revenue?
What was their tax to GDP ratio at the time they were criticizing the previous government? It was exactly low as well. But they said that there was no need for more taxation. That actually the quickest way to do is to move the economy from taxation into production. And then you are able to, as it will, generate the cash flow that will be able to, as it will, help the economy. So what happened to all that miraculous prescription? That is an admission that totally they've lost the plot. So if you lose the plot, it's okay. But at least be humble enough to admit that you lost the plot. Be humble enough, either humble pie, and stop trying to create the impression that really know you've known, but actually said that other issues that have brought the problem, when you know that it is your irresponsibility that has brought it about. Now, if you have a situation where you come and then you borrow as heavily as they have borrowed, and throughout that period, the amount of that borrowing that you are applying to capital expenditure, which is the means by which you actually grow the economy, which actually ensure that you are able to get what you call enough monies to be able to develop the country and so on. If you actually are underperforming in terms of how much money out of that borrowing you are applying to infrastructure, to proper development expenditure, you are going to have a situation where contribution to taxation are naturally going to suffer, because that's the way you bring it about. Now, our time, you're talking about capital expenditure as a percentage of revenue. That was far, far higher than what it is they are seeing. So naturally, you have a situation where a lot more, should I call it, activity taking place in the economy, and therefore contribution to tax is going to be up. Now you come and you literally, depress that particular fundamental, which is so important to growing the economy, which is fundamental to making sure that we create the necessary job. And then you are now resorting to what you call taxing people's what you call savings, money that they have saved. So effectively, it's like money that I have saved after I've paid my tax. Money which is supposed to be in my wallet, I decide that I want to put in an electronic wallet in order to do transaction, that as well you have to go for it. It tells you that you totally have lost the point.
But the fear is the alternative is scary. Once we don't go for internal mechanisms, we may have to rely on foreign assistance. I hope you're not against government's aim of building Ghana beyond aid.
No, but I'm saying that if you want to truly build a Ghana beyond aid, then you must actually have shown over the period that you've been in office. You've borrowed far more than any government in the history of Ghana. Within the period of 5.5 years, 6 years, you are talking about a resource envelope of far more than 530 billion that has actually come into your hands. And what do you really have to show for it? You cannot, for example, show the stock of infrastructure that a government that had virtually about half of that resource can show. And now you are talking about what? You are going to report to depend on foreign loan, but you actually have done that heavily already. So what is new? Now, if you've had access to 530 billion and still you cannot change the situation, what is the guarantee that if you have access to 6 billion, which even is, there's no likelihood you are going to get, what's the guarantee that that's going to change your situation and make you depend less on foreign loans? We are talking
austerity. You agree, Fifi Kwetey, will come at a cost. There would be certainly a challenge to a number of initiatives that government is rolling out. So for instance, the free senior high school policy. These are critical to the development of the country. You agree?
Yeah, but then if you even take note of all the so-called, shall I call it, flagship projects that they basically have been trumpeting all over the place. The total resource that have been committed to all these flagship projects over this last nearly 6 years is not more than 42 billion. If you have over 530 billion available to you, and the flagship projects all represent maximum of 42 billion, then really that's like a drop in an ocean. You can't use that as an excuse. You have had access to far more resources to be able to do so much more for the people. Now, so you can't really tell us that, listen, we're talking about a group as I mentioned. I mean, during the COVID, taking advantage of COVID, they had access to over about 40 billion cities. 40 billion cities. I mean, do you know what that means? That's massive. We're talking about a period of, throughout the period of Prof. Mills, okay? I don't think that we had access to that much money. And you have access to that in 1 year. 1 year. 1 year. And you still don't have anything to show. We are now learning that even some of the money, for example, that they took from stabilization fund.
You should be prepared to project your party.
We need to indicate to you that we're still having a conversation with Fifi Kwetey. He's the former Deputy Finance Minister. He's on with us. In fact, Fifi Kwetey, thank you for staying with us. In fact, we'll be crossing very shortly to listen to bits of what the Vice President has been saying. Then we'll pick up your thoughts on it briefly and then have your response on that. But you were making a point about how much revenue government has made and why they're not able to make full use of the funds.
Yeah, I was just talking about, for example, in 2020, they got access to about 40 billion in just 1 year. 1 year. In fact, I wouldn't say 1 year, just about like 4 months. And they still left us with a massive deficit of almost 16%. Now, we are just learning, for example, that part of the money they took from the stabilization fund, which they were supposed to make available to the energy sector, that money, we are in 2022, that money has still not been given to the energy sector. So the question then is, what exactly have they done with all these monies? And for you to now be talking about you need 6 billion desperately in order to be able to bring some salvation to Ghana. You had access to huge funds within a period of 4 months, and you still left us with massive deficit. That had brought about inflation that today is about 16%. 16% inflation. Your currency is depreciating at a fast rate. You're not using artificial means to see whether you can somehow hold the depreciation of that currency. Now, so really your problem is not that monies have not been made available to you. Your problem is that you've been absolutely reckless, you've lacked ideas, and you have shown clearly that you are not on top of the job.
So for you, going forward, how do we fix the problem? And I guess that's the major concern of a lot of people out there. The cost of living is rising, and a number of Ghanaians out there are looking for the solution. What exactly is that solution for you?
I say all the time that the beginning of all things is first and foremost to stop the lying, stop the blame shifting, stop trying to blame somebody for your problem. Because if you do that, then you will not be able to confront the real situation that is causing you.
You feel, I'm sorry for cutting through. I'm sorry for cutting through, but you feel that the government has not been honest enough. You're calling.
Absolutely.
You feel the president has been lying to us.
For example, how on earth are you going to blame Ukraine for the depreciation of the currency? Why are you blaming Ukraine for even the fuel prices? These are things that have come about because of your own mismanagement. That absolutely caused the depreciation of the currency to, the city was depreciated even before Ukraine started war 24th of February. Before 24th of February, the city was already, depreciated in the region of almost 13%. So how are you going to blame Ukraine for that? How are you blaming COVID for that? It's because of your own recklessness. Now, so if you do not address that, then of course you are definitely not going to be able to find solutions. Because as I told you, the reason why President Mahama was able to, for example, fix Doomsday was because we were men enough to accept the problem, even though that was not caused by us. But we did not run away from that responsibility. Having done that, then you are able to see exactly the nature of the problem, and then you can start applying the remedy that needs to be applied. But when you are all desperate, you think that running an economy is all about spin, trying to deceive people, hoping that somehow you can throw dust in their eyes and in order to deceive them through manipulation of figures, you only are digging your own hole. Because you're virtually acting like what you call the ostrich, burying your head in the sand and singing tunes and dancing yourself and thinking somehow you have resolved the problem. So the first and most important thing is to stop running away from the responsibility that you have taken us into this ditch. That is number one. Two, that's the only way you are going to start getting credit. Because the investors out there can see that this is a group that clearly is not being consistent. This is a group that says A and does the very opposite. This is a group that made noises about fiscal discipline, but took advantage of election 2020 and COVID and pushed what you call deficit to beyond 16%. Of course, the investors out there know that you cannot be trusted. This is a group that doesn't want to accept the fact that the problem of Ghana did not come about because of external circumstances, but because of their own mismanagement. So if you continue to do that, the investors out there know that you have no credibility. And if you don't have credibility, people clearly are not going to be interested in investing into your economy, because clearly they cannot even trust the numbers that you are giving out to them.
All right, then.
Because don't forget, we are talking about a group, for example, that for many years went systematically trying to even deceive this country about what you call the deficit. So they go and produce one deficit to the IMF, and then when they come to Parliament, they produce another deficit. And then when you catch them, they say, oh, it's because of a banking sector issue. That is why we have to have two separate figures. But that's not the first time we're having banking sector issues. When we took over in 2009, there were several issues that were affecting the banking sector. We had to, for example, look for huge money to pay Ghana Commercial Bank because it was virtually on the brink of collapse. Those were efforts that were made to restore confidence in the banking sector. We had to, for example, solve the energy sector legacy debt, which actually has been debt that had been an albatross on the neck of this economy for several years. We had to resolve all that, and all those affected deficit.
Right.
But did you hear any of us, did you hear GM and the government talking about different kind of deficit, one to the country and then one to IMF? No. That is what honesty brings about. And then with that, you are able to find solutions.
Okay, then. We need to go, but then obviously we know that all of this boils down to political will and the ability to deal with the challenges. Obviously, you're comparing records to an erstwhile regime, which is the political alternative, the National Democratic Congress. Given the track record that we have, are you able to put your best bet on the NDC going forward into the 2024 elections?
There's no comparison whatsoever. What we have is basically a group that believes that managing an economy is all about blowing trumpets, using slogans, and throwing about words and proclaiming magical solutions when the very reality is the very opposite. Ours was a group that absolutely was not making a lot of noise, but was delivering. Compare the records. Compare the record. I hear some of them talking about that they have had better fundamentals than we've had. That's not true. We're talking about in 2016, even in the midst of that difficulty, Not only did we resolve the massive energy crisis, we brought interest rate down from as high as 26% to 16%. Today, with how many years they have been in power? I mean, what have they done, for example, about treasury bill rate? Even in their best moment, treasury bill rate never went below 13%. And we have brought treasury bill rate down to 16% in 2016 before leaving power. Now, so what fundamentals really are they boasting about? I mentioned about, for example, growth. That even the growth they are boasting about in 2017 was actually growth that was handed over to them. Gross reserves, we left to them about $6.2 billion of gross reserves. We left for them a balance of payment surplus. We left for them infrastructure investment fund. We left for them even the Exim Bank that they're actually using today and doing all kinds of politics and shouting about doing stimulus to a number of companies, some of them that have been here since Kwame Nkrumah days, that suddenly have become companies that they have constructed over the period that MPP has been in power. I mean, even the money that's coming, that bank that the money is coming from was actually a bank that was set up by the NDC. Now, so effectively, you match us, and I've not even talked about the massive infrastructure. We're talking about taking expansion of electricity from 52% to about 83% over the period that we're in power, taking water from 57% to about almost 80%. I mean, those are massive infrastructure, massive jobs that are done to be able to bring about an alleviation and an uplift in the conditions of our people. So really the difference is that Ghanaians, I think, have gotten over the last 5-6 years to know that whereas these people are loud barrels, empty barrels, that make a lot of noise, NDC are people who really do so much more without making too much noise.
We'll have to leave it here. Fifi Kwetey, former Deputy Finance Minister, I'm grateful for your time. This is The Pulse. When we return, we'll bring you some more stories. Stay with us. And you're welcome back to The Pulse. Now, the Bank of Ghana is cautioning the general public to desist from dealing in illegal forex activities, pricing, advertising and making payments for goods and services in foreign currencies here in Ghana. The central bank explains in a statement that without the requisite licensing or authorization, it will be illegal for companies, institutions and individuals to actually engage in foreign exchange businesses, and as such, that such acts are punishable by a fine of up to some 700 penalty units or a term of imprisonment of not more than 18 months or both. Now, here are some excerpts of the statement from the Bank of Ghana. We'll just bring some of them to some of the details to you right now. Further to the Bank of Ghana's previous notices which advised that the public against unauthorized dealings in foreign currency, the Bank of Ghana hereby reminds the public that in accordance with the Foreign Exchange Act 2006, companies, institutions and individuals are actually prohibited from the following. First, engaging in foreign exchange businesses without a license issued by the Bank of Ghana, or pricing, advertising, receipting or making payments of goods and services in foreign currency in Ghana without written authorization from the Bank of Ghana. Now, such violations are punishable on summary conviction by a fine of up to 700 penalty units or a term of imprisonment of not more than 18 months or both. Now, the Bank of Ghana is hereby cautioning the general public to desist from dealing in illegal forex activities, the black market transactions, pricing, and then advertising, receipting, or making payments for goods and services in foreign currency here in Ghana without the requisite license or authorization from the Bank of Ghana. Now, the general public is thereby notified that the sole legal tender in Ghana is the Ghanaian cedi. Now, the Bank of Ghana is also doing that in collaboration with the national security and law enforcement agencies to continue to clamp down on illegal activities relating to foreign exchange operations. Now, all offenders shall be dealt with in accordance with the laws of the country. So that's the statement that we are receiving from the Bank of Ghana on this. But let's have a conversation now. Joining us via Zoom is Dr. Joseph Franz, who is the head Financial Stability Department of the Bank of Ghana. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. So what has actually necessitated this directive from the Bank of Ghana?
Thank you very much. Like you rightly said, the Bank of Ghana from time to time has been, just as the Bank of Ghana sensitizes the public on their rights with respect to laws governing the forex transaction or financial transactions in general, the Bank of Ghana also cautions the public from time to time to not indulge in illegal activities or undertake activities by unscrupulous persons who want to, enrich themselves or flout the laws of the country. So yes, it's a continuous thing, sensitization for the public to know their rights or be cautioned against indulging in illegal activities.
And I guess the question is, do you have adequate data on the number of financial institutions that have been authorized to deal in this market? And are you able to put out the data there, at least just to help the general public?
Well, we have data. At least we license institutions to deal in foreign forex. So we have data on all institutions that we have licensed. All primary dealers in forex are licensed by the Bank of Ghana. And so we have the banks who deal in forex. We have the forex bureaus who deal in spot transactions and all that, who have been licensed by the Bank of Ghana. So any other institution aside of this, institutions who are to deal in forex are unlicensed and maybe will be operating illegally.
And I guess the concern is, how feasible will it be cracking down on the black markets, particularly when they are not open? The activities are mostly done in secret. So how do you intend to track them down and deal with them?
Well, we collaborate with the security agencies, the law enforcement agencies, and some intelligence is gathered. And so that is the basis of cracking down on some of these institutions or some of these illegal activities in the system. So yes, intelligence work is done. And so the Bank of Ghana does not go into intelligence. There are persons and institutions that have been trained to do that. So information gathered is given to the intelligence agencies and the law enforcement agencies. Will do their work.
Right, but I guess this aspect of the economy does not need any financial intelligence. And we're talking about the real estate market and the hoteliers as well. The indications are clear that in that market, you find quite a significant number of organizations trading in foreign currencies. What are you doing about this as the Bank of Ghana?
Well, every activity that ought to be investigated needs some level of intelligence. But back to your question, the hoteliers, or if you like, the hospitality industry, some selected hospitality industries have been not licensed, but have been authorized by the Bank of Ghana to deal in forex. We have some mining institutions also who deal in forex or receive a lot of forex activity for convenience for them to deal in. So we have some selected institutions for expediency, for them to deal in forex. So that is it. But it's not all institutions, it's not all hotels that has been given that. And gradually we'll have forex exchange in all the institutions for them to be able to deal in forex. Then you have the foreign exchange bureaus around all these institutions, so that yes, people will have to exchange money at the bureaus and not necessarily dealing directly in forex.
And the operative word used there is some. So you clearly accept the fact, admit the fact that some of the hoteliers and some of the real estate companies as well are not certified to do what they're doing.
Well, I know of some of the renowned hotels that have a lot of forest inflows, and clients who come from outside the country and so on for convenience to deal in forex. Those institutions are strictly monetized, if you like, monitored by the central bank, and so those ones have been authorized by the central bank to deal in forex. Like I'm saying, for convenience and for expediency. I don't know of real estate institutions that have been authorized. So if a real estate institution is dealing in forex, then that real estate must be dealing illegally in forex and must be reported to the law enforcement agencies.
Okay, I guess what comes to on top of my mind right now is about the concern on the Ghanaian economy. Obviously, the measures you're taking should bring some benefits to the Ghanaian economy. What's that benefit that would immediately accrue to the Ghanaian economy if you're able to go ahead and properly enforce the regulation that you're putting out there or reminding the public about?
Yes. Thank you very much. Once you dollarize your economy, then it means that you are weakening your city. And if you are weakening your city, then you are making everything expensive for your citizenry, to activities of your citizenry. So yes, you realize that some components of our activities are in forex. We import crude oil, so we pay in forex. There are components of the price build-up of fuel that we sell at our pumps in forex. So as the city depreciates, you have prices of our fuel going up. And if it goes up, it has implications for the economy. You have supply shock to the economy. Everything will move up, and it will have implications for inflation. You have the debt components, the one in forex also shooting up, and then we'll have implications for deficits, that we have will be hanging on our heads. So the dealing in forex is very important, and not dealing in forex, especially, to put it that way, is very, very important for our city to stabilize, so that we'll have inflation subdued as much as possible.
Right. Doc, I thought that would have been the last one, but obviously there's a concern about the timelines. Do you have timelines on when you intend to scale up the enforcement that you're reminding the public about?
There are no timelines. Once you are dealing in forex illegally, you will be clamped down, and you'll be clamped down any day, any time that you decide to do an activity that you are not authorized to do. So yes, this is a year-long, week-long, daily activity that we only sensitize the public from time to time to just let the public know, and so that you and I will know that once you hear or know of someone dealing in forex illegally, then you know where to report to and what action you have to take.
Finally, are you open to reports from the general public in terms of partnership, giving you financial intelligence, so you are able to crack down effectively?
Yes, we have what we call our call center at the Financial Stability Department, complaints.office@gov.gh. We also have WhatsApp numbers. If you permit me, I'll mention the WhatsApp numbers.
Right.
And so we have, you can call 0302665005. You can also send emails to complaints.office@bog.gov.gh. And we also have some WhatsApp numbers. We have 059691234 or 050-150-2270. So these are the channels that you can use to reach the central bank for any complaints or for any form of report on someone operating illegally in forex.
Dr. Joseph Franz, Head of Financial Stability Department at the Bank of Ghana, thank you for your time here on The Pulse. Let's stay on the banking sector, because the former Managing Director of the Defined Capital Bank, Reverend Fitzgerald, has told the Accra High Court that he did not approve the payment of an amount of 27.5 million cedis to the founder of the bank, William Atoesian. He told the court that he believed the transaction was not in the interest of the bank. Reverend Odonko and the bank's founder, William Atoesian, and businessman Dr. Tete Nete have been slapped with 26 charges, including stealing sums worth over 260 million cedis. Court correspondent Joseph Akable has the rest of the story.
State prosecutors allege that the former MD between June 2015 and October 2016 aided Mr. Asian to appropriate a total of 27.5 million, which was conveyed in jute bags in the name of business promotion payments. Reverend Odonko on Thursday mounted a witness box to tell his side of the story. He told the court the decision to pay the said amount was approved by the board of Capital Bank. The former Capital Bank MD insisted that he was not in support of the payment. He has also been accused of aiding Mr. Asian to cause the transfer of 120 million cedis of the liquidity support amount to All Time Capital Limited, an investment management and advisory firm. 100 million of this amount was further transferred to MC Management Services, while the remaining 20 million was transferred to Pronto Construction and Supplies Limited. The 100 million cedis was said to have been received by MC Management Services and subsequently represented by Dr. Tete Nete to the Bank of Ghana as the initial capital of Sovereign Bank. Reverend Odonko told the court that he did not know Dr. Tete Nete and only met him when the case was filed in court. On the said transfer of Capital Bank funds, he said it was a decision by the board and the Treasury Department of the defunct bank was better placed to respond to it. The case has been adjourned to April 28.
Now, cocoa, as Ghana's major foreign export, is the backbone of the country's economy. As a commodity that generates millions of income for Ghana, one would expect laborers of this essential fruits to earn a good wage, but that is not the case. In today's episode of the Joy Living Standard series, Love FM's Emmanuel Bright Kweku gauged the economic situation of some cocoa farmers and careers at Kratchikrum.
Cocoa na eteno beko akodono sikaro kakoto endro begu afuo no kra no na ya asem
Cocoa money aye no mfaso bia amma first na ye
Most youth hailing from the northern part of Ghana move down south in hope for greener pastures. Abdul Rashid may be one of the over thousands who are yet to break the shackles of financial constraints after he moved down south. After his secondary education at Boko in the Upper East region, Rashid returned to his aged father at Kratchikrum in the Ashanti region to take up his cocoa farming business.
Boy kakra papa na bedoye to boy mama ko school na timi USS na ono so wa bre.
My father started this cocoa farming business. He used the money he got to cater for my secondary education. But now he's grown, so I've taken up the job. These dried cocoa beans can be here for almost a week without I gaining any money, unless I borrow money to transport them and use the little I get to pay up the debts. Cocoa, as a golden commodity, provides livelihood for over 700,000 farmers in the southern tropical belt of Ghana. Rashid hoped the cocoa farming business, which catered for all his secondary education expenses, would do same now. But times are not the same anymore. Recent inflation in the country is crumbling his cocoa farming business.
Cocoa na eteno beko akodono sikaro kakoto endro begu afuo no kra no na ya asem because that time na cocoa no be so ye ni sika bia e be dey e betun dia gu afuo no cocoa no mba ya ye ni sika bia e betun dia gu.
The money to even buy fertilizer is even a problem. Until the cocoa is harvested, we cannot get any money for fertilizer, and by the time we harvest the cocoa, the money we earn will be used to pay up the debts. I used to harvest 15 bags, but now I can only harvest 5 bags. Petrol prices are even expensive too.
petrol more than then I got to petrol. Say we go for now. Phone was 10 acres. Guess I told us 5 gallons be and sanity. We say 1 gallon be and 450. And we now again say.
Rashid is not alone in the cocoa farming business. His brother, Isa Abbas, joined him from the north to continue plowing their father's over 10 acres of cocoa farm together. He anticipated a good living condition down south. However, proceeds from the farm are not enough to support his family of 3.
By Santamam say, Coco Jimaka Krana, Ebe Sika, Atua, Ako school.
I came down south to earn some cash to continue my education, but it appears where I were is better. I have no other job to fend for myself and family. I rely on this cocoa farming business.
Cocoa Jumana me, Inti Kakra Mayano, Cocoa Sikan Kakra Mayan, and then the DD, Cocoa ne, Onyane, Dodoa, and then I would Timia de Eddie Bibi. Inti Emma, Wanyana Dodoa, Untimi Fire, she.
His wife, Latifa, is fed up with the recent expensive cost of living at the village. One may argue the rural areas are blessed with cheaper and abundant foodstuff, but Latifa does not sing in unison with this notion.
We are not earning enough from the cocoa farm. It was better before, but not now. I've even suggested to my husband to stop farming and find another job.
The farmers are not the only ones bearing the brunt. Cocoa carriers are also worried over the meager commission they accrue after trekking for hours to send home the bags of cocoa from the farm. Majid and his colleagues carry a bag of cocoa for 3 Ghana cedis, an amount they say is not enough for financial upkeep. We used to carry a bag for 1 cedi 50 pesos, but it's now 3 Ghana cedis. The maximum cash I can make in a day is just 10 Ghana cedis. I can only carry 3 bags in a day. Despite cocoa being a rich source of Ghana's income, these actors in the cocoa industry cannot say the same about their livelihoods.
Well, let's shift focus now. Let's look at the energy sector, because the Ministry of Energy is refuting claims by former Minister of Power, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, that the country will return to the dark days of the long-drawn power outages, popularly referred to as doomsday. The minority had cautioned that if urgent steps are not taken to address the country's generation capacity, I should say, Ghana may be back to the dark days of doomsday. However, the ministry in a statement has provided clarity on the status of the country's energy sector. We can now bring you excerpts of that statement, which you have on your screens right now, indicating that the attention of the Ministry of Energy has been drawn to a news item on various media platforms in which former Minister for Power under the John Dramani Mahama administration, Dr. Kwabena Donkor, is quoted as predicting the return of doomsday on the back of what he describes as insignificant addition to our generational capacity. I'll just take you to the third point, the third statement, page 3 of the statement, where they give some clarity on the steps that they've taken to address the situation, indicating in a table what the Nana Addo administration has done so far in terms of adding on. So here you have it, indicating that in terms of the existing generational capacity, the claim by Dr. Kwabena Donkor that the NPP government has not added significantly to the generational capacity, to the generation capacity, cannot be supported by the available facts. And they provide the facts down there for you, that under the administration of President Akufo-Addo, there are a number of interventions which are already underway. There you have the project Amandi providing some 204 megawatts of power. Bui solar project is also supposed to produce some 50 megawatts of power. And the VRA project is also there producing some 17 megawatts of power. So at the backdrop of this, the Energy Ministry is claiming that even with our peak demand of 3,469 megawatts of power, the capacity we have is in excess, which amounts to some 5,358 megawatts of power. So why is the ministry justifying its position? Joining us now is Kofi Abrefa Afena, who's the communication specialist at the Ministry of Energy, joining us to provide some clarity on this. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. So why are you concerned about the statement of the minority if indeed Ghana has the capacity to contain our energy sector?
Thank you very much. Good evening to your viewers. We are concerned because basically the statement by the former power minister sought to send some undue shivers down the spine of Ghanaians. For us, it is attempted to cause some fear and panic among Ghanaians. And so we, by this statement, seek to set the record straight and to provide clarity, as you rightly indicated, that Ghana will never return to the dark days of Dumso. Indeed, what happened during the John Mahama era, where we had Dumso, Ghana reeling under some power crisis, is indeed a blot in the history of our republic, and Ghanaians do not in any way want to go back. So we sought to indicate that it is nothing of that sort. We are really on the ground, and we are determined to ensure that the lights are on, and it will keep the nation moving.
It's interesting how in your statement you're indicating that even with a peak demand of 3,000 megawatts, you're having excess capacity to contain the situation. Many experts will tell you that clearly you cannot take John Mahama out of the equation in terms of adding on to the generation capacity and even the mix as well. So give credit when it's due, isn't it?
Clearly, the record will show that it is during the administration of President Akufo-Addo that Dumso was finally banned in the dictionaries.
Yes, but I'm asking you, Kofi, I'm simply asking you to appreciate the fact that some works have been done in the past. You agree?
I do not think you want me to, if you like, jump onto your bandwagon. I mean,
it's not necessarily the case, but I'm just trying to put out the facts there as well. You agree that it's a collective effort. It's not just the case that the president has single-handedly added on to the mix. The point is the administration, the SY administration, also provided capacity. You agree?
Absolutely. I mean, government is a continuum, and we are not saying that they didn't do anything. If indeed they did much, why was Ghana reeling under power crisis? I mean, let's make progress, because what we are seeking to do is to put out a very incontrovertible fact, which is that Dumso under John Mahama was caused by three main problems. Number one, poor hydrology due to overdrafting of our hydro dams, inadequate fuel supply to thermal plants, and financial challenges. Indeed, when you talk about financial challenges, they will always dispute that fact. But time without number, it has proven that indeed it is part of the reasons why Ghana was reeling in such power crisis. So what we have done is to institute what we call a cash flow mechanism. In fact, this cash flow mechanism allows for liquidity among the actors in our power sector, which will ensure the reduction of inter-utility indebtedness. So these, among other things, talking about the government ensuring that there is the phenomenon of prudent addition to our generation capacity in terms, as demonstrated in the statement, in terms of the projects we have done, our ongoing projects, our projected peak demand from 2023 to 2027, are all the various reasons that makes us come into conclusion that indeed it is nothing but an undue shivers being sent down the spine of Ghanaians, and we totally and outrightly reject the assertions of the former power minister.
All right, Kofi, help us with this. We need to get clarity on that as well. You've provided clarity on the capacity. You indicate that we're exceeding by over 2,000 megawatts in terms of capacity, but what is the main concern for some experts as well has got to do with the independent power producers and what the situation is in terms of our debt to these companies. Have we settled all of them? What's our status? And that will be, I guess, the guarantee that we may not return to the dark days. You agree?
So you realize or you recall that a lot of IPPs were signed. I mean, and these IPPs were signed essentially on the back of take or pay, which plunged Ghana into some much more economic crisis. So what this government has done is to engage in a review of some of these existing power purchase agreements, because some of these were arbitrarily signed. I mean, you have excess, but you keep on signing. So what the Energy Ministry, under the able leadership of Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, is seeking to do is to renegotiate some of these existing power purchase agreements, and then also prudently add to our generation mix. So we are on course. It's a very much a process, and we want to assure Ghanaians that everything that is being done is in the interest of the Republic of Ghana, to ensure that, one, we have value for money. We are not going back to the days of take or pay, where the Ghanaian taxpayer is so much burdened, and also to ensure that the lights are on, and then we keep the nation moving. Of course, sometimes there will be isolated cases of power outages. I mean, because of some still challenges in our generation, transmission, and distribution value chain. But just like any machine, I mean, we are ensuring every day assiduously that all of these things are sorted out.
Interesting. But last year, I guess late last year, there were clear indications that we're experiencing some challenges. The ministry attributed the challenges to the need to refurbish and upgrade the installations that we have across some significant or very important bulk supply points across the country. How far with such a project, and would you say that we're stable now in terms of power supply?
As you rightly mentioned, it's very much, these are transmission lines that were used. I mean, it predates even our colonial days, and I mean, to work on them, you would definitely have to put off these lights. So we are very much on course. We have done with Kaswa, BSP, Pokuase. All of these projects are very much on course, and then we are keen on ensuring that the Ghanaian is very much comfortable in terms of stability of these lights.
So what's the theme now? Doom CSA and Doom Soba.
So we are very much done with Doom CSA. So our priority now is to keeping the lights on and the nation moving.
So Doomsaw is over, I guess.
I mean, when you talk about Doomsaw, I mean, Doomsaw has happened during John Mahama. It's not what is happening currently. I mean, we make that point very forcefully. We make it without equivocation that what is happening currently may be some isolated cases, which admittedly is because, of course, I mean, giving where we are and where we want to go, we want to solve some challenges in the whole value chain. So that is what causes all of these things. And of course, like your car, my brother, like your car. I mean, you go home, you know that the next morning you are starting to JoyNews to engage in your mundane activities, and then the clutch wouldn't help you do your work. So I mean, very much like any machine, some of these things may come up sometimes, but our technicians are always on the ground. In fact, the Honorable Minister, Honorable Matthew Opoku Prempeh, keeps telling the actors of our
Kofi, are you there with us? Right. Anyway, Kofi, I guess you've made the point. I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. That's Kofi Afena with the Ministry of Energy giving us some clarity there. But there's a need for us to talk about this. Parents of the newly admitted senior high school students are bemoaning the expensive prospectus compared to tuition fees they used to pay. Now, with as much as that's 2,000 Ghana cedis, parents are actually unable to purchase the over 30 listed items on the students' prospectus. Schools expect strict compliance to the prospectus as part of the admission process. However, with the rising cost of the items on the market, some parents are challenged. There's more in this report by Mona Lisa Frimpong.
New entrants to senior high schools will soon be reporting to their respective schools, and as has always been the tradition, the school gives every student a list of items they're supposed to bring to school. So today we are here at the Central Business District, specifically Kejetia, where we interact with parents who are here to shop for the awards.
Hajia Mariam is supposed to be shopping for her two teenagers who gained admission to senior high schools this year. However, she can only afford to shop for only one. The other child, she says, can wait till next year to enter senior high school.
We have no choice but to buy the items. The items are expensive.
Hajia Mariam visited the market with 1,500 Ghana cedis, but she has not been able to purchase half of the items on the list.
The 1,500 cedis I bought is already finished.
Aunt Lucy's situation is no different from Hajia Mariam's. She was told by the school that her inability to provide all items will lead to her ward being denied admission.
It cost more than 2,000 cedis to buy the items on the prospectus.
Other guardians see some items on the prospectus as unnecessary.
Demanding cutlass, axe and brooms are not necessary.
As the total of items in the prospectus may be higher than admission fees, there have been divergent views from guardians.
You only need Gary and a few items to attend SHS.
Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
And now, teenage pregnancy has been a topical issue that Ghana has battled over the years. According to the Ghana Health Service, 109,880 teenage pregnancies were actually recorded in 2020 alone. Now, though these frightening figures have led many Ghanaians to believe nothing is being done to tackle the issue, but sexual and reproductive health and rights activist Mr. Sogah Mensah, in his own small way, is actually steadily changing the narrative here in the Greater Accra region. We have more for you in this report.
Buzzers were life. But beyond the vibrant lifestyles are seething social issues gradually sinking the community. teenage pregnancy is one of the many social issues it battles with.
The sad part is how they get pregnant. Some people resort to unsafe abortions, and in the worst case scenario, they die.
That is Aurelia Sowa Mensah. She's 27 years, born and bred in La. She has lived all her life here. She spends her time engaging young people on sexual reproductive health to help control birth in the La community.
Others get pregnant, have the child, and because there's really no money at home or there isn't enough money at home, she would have to drop out of school, take care of the child. That child will grow to a certain stage, also become a teen mother, and then the cycle continues.
The lives of many young girls in this neighborhood are changed forever because of unplanned pregnancies.
I wanted to be a nurse, but because I gave birth, my dreams were crushed.
Christiana Ai is 26 years old. She had her first baby when she was 16 years old. Now, the mother of two, she has asked I hide her identity.
I was just 19 years when I delivered my second child. I went through hell after that. It wasn't easy at all. I worked with someone who paid me 5 cedis per day. That amount is woefully inadequate, but I had to manage because I had a child on the way. 5 cedis no to be far. Now, I work at the Makola market. It's just by grace I survive each day.
Okay.
Aurelia takes time to visit the homes of young girls in her community to educate them on sexual reproductive health.
Most of the time, they don't know what they are doing because some of them are from poor backgrounds. Some of them I think some of them use sex as a source of entertainment. There's no TV at home. How many playgrounds we have in Accra? There are no playgrounds. Some parents can't afford to take their children to the library, to all those recreational stuff. And so that is their source of entertainment. And so if we can give them the right information, when they go out there, we know, oh, I have given this child this information, so I can trust that she'll make the right decision. And if ever she made a mistake, at least she will know who to go to.
Renelle Lamte is also a teenager who has recently given birth to twins. Aurelia has convinced yet another person to sign onto a family planning method.
So I will not force you, but I will advise you to go on a family planning method. There's the usage of condoms. That one is safer because it prevents both STIs and unplanned pregnancies.
For her work, Aurelia is one of 50 awardees chosen from around the world as speakers in the upcoming 2022 International Conference on Family Planning.
And it also means more work because if you've been recognized as someone who is really doing well in the family planning community or in the sexual and reproductive health and rights community, it means there's more work for you to be done.
Teenage pregnancy is still a big problem in Aurelia's community. But with a new opportunity to learn more and gain resources through this program, she hopes to be a stronger voice that helps to change the narrative. Amma Cromwell's report for JoyNews.
And you're still live with us here on The Pulse. When we return, we'll bring you sports.